This is Just a Few Questions. I'm Marc Sims. My guest is Jessie Fuentes. Jessie Fuentes is the alderperson of the 26th Ward here in the city of Chicago. Welcome to the show, Jessie Fuentes.
Thank you for having me, Mark.
Man, how was these first 2 years being alderperson of 26th Ward?
Oh, it's great. I mean, obviously it's busy, right? We get elected to do a job, to be of service, to be a good public servant. And I'm excited. I'm excited about the things that we've accomplished. I'm excited about the presence that we have in the ward, the relationships we're restoring, the trust that we are building. I'm definitely excited to be at the midpoint and sort of set a good foundation for what the next 2 years looks like.
Oh, and that means you're running for re-election, right? That's a done deal. So, real quick, what are some of the borders of the 26th Ward?
Absolutely. I represent 5 phenomenal neighborhoods in the city of Chicago. That's Westtown, Humboldt Park, Logan Square, and Elmira, and Belmont Cragen. My most eastern border being Western and Division Street, with my northern border being Belden, and, my most western in Belmont Cragen over on Armitage and Leclerc. And so, we have a long stretch. We represent the heart of the Latino community here on the Northwest side, and I'm extremely proud to represent every single constituent.
Yeah, I may get into you. Humboldt Park is in your ward, right?
That's right.
I may
Born
tell
and raised.
Listen, I'm listening to you. Well, anybody's born and raised in this town, I love them. I really do. Okay, what are some of the challenges? What are some of the challenges of the 26th Ward? And you can also say what are the good things about the 26th Ward?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'll start with the bright and the best. We represent an extremely diverse ward, obviously with a predominant population of Latinos. I am known to be the Puerto Rican heartbeat of the Puerto Rican Chicago, representing Humboldt Park. We have the 2 largest Puerto Rican steel flags that you'll find anywhere around the world. Look, the 26th Ward offers so much. We have some of the best cultural festivals in the Midwest as it relates to Puerto Rican culture. But we also have, great food. In the 26th Ward, we've worked really hard in sustaining residents, right? And so we've done some phenomenal work around affordable housing. I cut a ribbon a couple months ago on one, and we put shovels to the ground in another. And so we're really working hard to build quality housing on the Northwest side. The challenge remains the same. I also represent rapidly gentrifying community areas, right? Humboldt Park is among the top 3 rapidly gentrifying communities in the city of Chicago. And so there's a lot of work to do, right, to support families that are facing immense displacement due to the increase of property taxes and the increase of rents. And so we have to find ways to support working families. And we're working hard every single day to process property tax appeals, to figure out what tax abatements can apply, and to build affordably. Look, I'm pro-development, but we have to make sure that we're responsible with development in the 26th Ward, and that we're not developing things that have unintentional consequences. And, community safety continues to remain a concern, but we truly believe that when you build quality housing, when you have resources, when you have a presence and you show your community residents that you care, you provide folks with alternatives, right? You build safer neighborhoods, and it's exactly what we're doing here in the 26th Ward.
Well, I'm here way, way, way far south side. Been here all my life. I'm not going anywhere. And that's why I like talking to people who are on the other side of town, because depending on where you live, if you don't have family, friends, or a job on that side of town, you don't go on that side of town. You just don't. I can talk about that later on, but here, and maybe before the show, I may go back to that. But here's the question I brought you here. How can the city of Chicago become the safest big city in the United States of America?
Yeah, no, that's a phenomenal question. I think that's the question of today, right? I'll tell you this, Mark. Look, I was born and raised in Humboldt Park, and I tell folks all the time that I'm proof of concept, that when we invest in our young people, when we love them radically, they will become agents of change in our city. It took one high school with a culturally competent curriculum, people who love me, that really turned my life around. And, I have a juvenile record. It's no secret. We talked about it on my campaign trail. I expressed my emotions with my hands because I didn't sort of have the skills, the social emotional skills to do it otherwise. But it was a school that invested in me, that gave me a lot of opportunity and employment to be able to change the trajectory of my life. And I became an organizer at the age of 17 years old, and I haven't looked back since, right? I was a school administrator for 10. a policy advocate for a couple years before I ran for elected office, I truly believe that we have to look at the neighborhoods in the city of Chicago and start making the significant investments that are needed to really be able to grasp the imagination of young people. And yes, summer jobs are a step in the right direction, but we need to continue to do more. Young people, adults, anyone, they're not going to make responsible decisions if every day they are trying to figure out how do they get their next meal and keep a roof over their head. And so it's extremely important that we have affordable housing and housing as a right, because people are safer when they feel more secure. That's why housing is such an important pillar of work for me, because I know if you are worried about keeping a roof over your head, you can be a little more sound minded to make decisions. And we have to continue to work across different stakeholders to do things like responsible policing, to have violence prevention interventionists in our community. Look, I have a committee on community safety. It was the first committee that I installed when I got into elected office. And that committee is comprised of residents who are concerned with community safety, violence prevention organizations, and service providers that address what we consider to be basic need issues and disparities in our community. And every month we are analyzing the criminal data across the 26th ward. And I want to tell you, in the 26th ward, we haven't had one homicide in the last 3 months. And
Wow.
that's a record
Wow.
for communities like Humble Park and Mosa and Belmont Cragen. And I want to tell you why I think we got here. We got here because we were assessing data and we were watching pockets of our community need our attention, right? Aggravated batteries, assaults, carjackings were happening in pockets of my neighborhood. They weren't happening everywhere. It was like 20% of the ward creating 80% of the problems. And so we took those particular pockets of our neighborhood and we started giving it all the attention it needed. Does that mean that we are ensuring that there is rapid police response in those areas? Yes. Does that mean that we are sending mental health specialists to those areas? Yes. Does that mean we are doing things like safety walks, block parties, pop-ups? Yes, because all of those things make the difference, right? Talking to young people, connecting them with jobs, talking to families, getting them victim specialization services. And with a combination of all things, you're able to make the difference. Now, am I going to be the safest ward in the city of Chicago for the next 10 years? I don't know. But I do know that what we are doing is working, and it can serve as a model for how we address safety across the city of Chicago. It requires all stakeholders, and I truly believe that. I believe police have a role to play. I believe community organizations have a role to play. I believe families have a role to play, and I believe government has a role to play. And when we can agree that we all have skin in the game, we can make the difference.
Well, I agree with that totally, and crime is decreasing here in the city of Chicago, but that is a trend across the country. But there are a lot of young people. There's been reports out there for a while now. There's a lot of young people, teens and young adults, because the old criminals are going to age out. We know that. At some point, they're going to age out. But the younger criminals, so the next generation, if you will, how we get the teens and the young adults who are not part of any program, or they don't go to a great, name that high school you went to that changed your life.
Yeah.
Name the high school. Name it again.
It's Albizu Campus.
See, I don't know. I don't speak Spanish that way. You so fluent. See, you can roll those R's. Okay. Now, so I say that because if you didn't go to that high school, that alternative high school, and the people there turned you around and put you in a good direction, if you will, a lot of people don't have that. And what happened to you if you didn't go to that high school?
Well, I'd probably still be in trouble. That's the honest truth, right? Because I wouldn't have become conscious. I wouldn't have become politically minded. And I wouldn't have felt a responsibility to fight for something greater than myself. It's what happened to me at the age of 16 when I walked into that high school, and they gave me something different. I think that they provided me something I had been searching for my entire life. I just didn't know it yet, right? And that was purpose. And I think a lot of our young people are still trying to figure out what their purpose is. And we live obviously in a very different world, right? Like our parents, myself, we didn't grow up in the realm of technology, right? Like when I was growing up, we still had them big apples that were like the size of your desk.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
We didn't have technology at our fingertips, being able to access information the way the young people do today. And they are very technologically driven. And so we have to find ways to get messaging and inspiration to young people in the ways that they are receiving it today. And I don't think that we've caught up with young people. I think that that's actually the problem, right? We are trying to still serve young people the way I was served 16, 17 years
And
ago,
not to cut
right?
you off
20
per
years
se,
ago.
I'm from the days of the rotary telephone, so you know how old I am. And
Yeah.
and I say that because when I listen to your story about going to that school, of course, you go to, I'm sort of blaming the schools, but that's not what they do. I want them to change the system because you can go through 13 years of public education and you really don't know anything really about yourself, your neighborhood, who you are. I mean, I want human development. So you think at some point, the CPS, the state education, the city of Chicago, they start doing human development either in school or after school programs to really break how this world. And guess what? The young people in the world, especially in the young kids in grammar school, in high school too, we about to go into this AI thing. This is some serious, serious stuff. And now we really prepare for a world that's going to blow our minds in the next 5 or 10 years.
Right. No, absolutely. And I couldn't agree with you more, Mark. I do think that we need a systems change in our educational systems. Look, I fell in love with who I was as a person and my community and wanted to fight for everything in its improvement because people took the time to educate me about where I've been living my whole life, right? People took the time to educate me about what it meant to be a Puerto Rican in the diaspora. I learned about migration patterns. I learned about gentrification, right? And for the first time in my life, there were so many things that made sense to me, right? Like my mother's drug addiction began to make sense to me when I learned about the colonial reality of Puerto Rico. I would have gone my whole life bitter and angry, thinking that I did something wrong and my mom didn't love me, right? And that she was incapable of loving me because I didn't understand the system that created the conditions in the first place. And I think so many of our young people know so little about themselves and where they come from, making it very difficult for them to find purpose in who
Well,
they
you would
are.
agree
And
that the conservatives think that it's DEI or some kind of I don't
oh
know,
yeah,
left wing BS. You're not teaching about
yeah,
America. You're making America sound bad. You know how
yeah.
this works, don't you?
Yeah, I absolutely know how it works. The thing that can save lives is quite literally under attack and being weaponized and demonized to say that that's exactly what's created the problem of today. The reality is we just haven't done enough of that, right? Remotely close, we haven't done enough of that. But here's the thing, what I've been taught didn't teach me to hate the United States. I love the United States. So much so that I'm trying to do everything to protect this democracy. So much so that it made me want to run for office. I want to represent the very country and the city that I live in, right? And so I think that there is sort of this misconception and a misunderstanding of what this type of education can do for young people because we learn about the flawed, imperfect nation that we are. It doesn't mean that we love our nation less. It means we love it enough to make it better.
Well, I haven't.
And
No, I blew that one. He was on a roll. I'm sorry. I'm going to let you finish the
no,
show.
no,
I chimed in a little bit too soon. I haven't been to Humble Park since Chance the Snapper, the alligator, was swimming in the lagoon. So I need to go over there to Humble Park. But see, when I grew up here in Chicago, grew up way back in the day, they are great, beautiful parks like Humboldt Park here in the city of Chicago. And people come to Chicago, the lakefront is fine, but these beautiful parks in the city are great too. But you always say, the Puerto Ricans over there, and that ain't your neighborhood, and blah, 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 blah. So you're scared to go over there. You're just scared. And that's why I want the city to be so safe, everyone to go in different parts and not be scared. Let me say this real quick. Thank you, Alderperson Fuentes, for being my guest. Now, invite everyone to your office. How did they come see you? How did they get in contact with you? Go right ahead.
absolutely. You can always walk into my office. That's 2511 West Division Street in the heart of Puerto Rico town, in between the largest two Puerto Rican steel flags you'll ever see around the world. And if you want to call us, tell us any issues that you're having, big or small, you can call us at 773-395-0143.